G'day you absolute legends. So this is the second part of my tutorial on how to vlog, right? So now in this I'm going to go through what I use, Premiere Pro CC, and that's the program I use to edit all the footage. And listen, I need to be straight up with you. Through making these two tutorials, I've realised that I'm not very good at tutorials. There's people on the internet, on YouTube, who are amazing at tutorials. I'm not. I think I should stick to vlogs. But because I've just made this Premiere Pro CC tutorial and I absolutely hate it, but you guys might get something out of it. So it's nearly 20 minutes long, but have a crack at it, see if you like it. I will have a vlog up. As soon as I finish this, I'm going to go and do today's vlog. So I'll have a vlog up ASAP for those people that really enjoy the vlogs. But this is it in a nutshell. So I'm going to go into Premiere Pro, how I handle files, things like that. In a nutshell, I'll start by saying what I do is I put a little folder on my desktop. I bring from my 3 cameras or 4 cameras of my GoPro, my DJI Phantom, I basically dump everything into the one folder. And then I import that one folder from the desktop or from my little Firewire hard drive into Premiere Pro, and I'll just drag it and I'll work with it. Time is of the essence when you're making regular vlogs, so you can't mess around labeling things and putting them into their separate folders. Keep it short and sweet, right? So that's what I do. And then the rest of this vlog is basically going to be a bit tedious for people who aren't into vlogs or learning how to vlog. It's just going to be me going through the process of how I edit, okay? Hopefully you get something out of it. Let's get into it now, but I apologise for those people who aren't into vlogging and don't want to know about vlogging. I will have a vlog up ASAP, but until then, let's get into it. Alright, so as you can see here, I have got a Premiere Pro CC, so it's the latest release. You know, you pay about $600 per year for this. You can get other versions online, but I prefer to pay for the CC version because there's all these little shortcuts and things and just good things about it that make your life easier. There's also, you can actually get the GoPro footage and put all sorts of filters on it to make it look less GoPro-y. And you can, yeah, so Premiere Pro CC is amazing. You can work with lookup tables, the coloring and stuff is good. So for example, what I will start with, if I minimize this, you can see on my desktop here, I've got, this is my video archive. So this is a NAS which sits out in the living room, and I basically archive all of my footage. All of my vlogs are kept on the NAS. Any archive footage goes onto this thing here. I've got my Passport Pro, which is something I take with me in my backpack when I go to a cafe or go to work, so that I can do some editing at work. Alright, so on my Passport Pro, what I'll do is I'll keep all of the main project file, I'll keep in a folder called Daily Vlog, and that keeps all my auto saves and stuff like that. And so I can take that hard drive, as I said, with me. And then I keep, so for example, today's vlog, vlog 222, and I will literally take everything off the cards, off this GH4, off the Canon, if I've got any GoPro footage, and I'll all just throw it into this one folder. Now there's probably better ways of doing that. You could probably go through and sort of separate everything into its own folders, but I'm telling you, when you're doing a daily vlog, you can't afford to mess around like that. Like, it's all about productivity. So it's all about dropping stuff into one big pool, and that way you can work with it chronologically. I lay everything out chronologically, so when I'm in Premiere Pro, I can step to the next file and I know that that's sequential through the day, and that's quite often how I lay my vlogs out. So once I've got them all into a folder called, say, vlog 222, these are all the files from the Lumix, and these are all the files from the Canon G7X. What I do then is I go across to my Premiere Pro, okay, and I've got some setups in here. So I archive all of my old footage here, and then I've got every edit, so vlog 177, 78. So all I do is I come into vlog, for example, 122, vlog 221, and I'll duplicate it and rename it, and then you can see I've put that there. So that's what this is down here. If you look down to the right, this is today's vlog, and if you see, this is Lucas. So if I go into, so this is Lucas here. So he did my intro today, so I've just chucked him at the beginning there. And then I've got a little bit of a time lapse through here. How I'll create this little time-lapse sequence here, you can see if we zoom in the timeline down here, I've got, and you look up the top right, that's actually what's in my timeline. So this is a little time-lapse, and then I've got my main intro. Okay. And then it cuts out, obviously, at a second little time-lapse sequence. So what I quite often do is I'll film for my time-lapses, I'll film for 3 minutes or 5 minutes, just normal filming. You got to think about the most productive way to make these things. So for example, I will, you could do a time-lapse where you take separate photos, and then it's so much work to sort of bang that together. It's just much easier to film and then speed that footage up, and that makes for a great time lapse, right? So if we look at this one here, here's the girls making coffee. This is just normal speed. So what I might do is I'll just mark an input, so I'll press I here, and then I'll move the thing along to a point where I move. I could take it all the way to the end there, but I might just take it to there, and then I'll mark an out point by pressing O. So there's your in and your out. And I could either grab the whole footage and drag it down here, but you can see that top one is the video and the bottom one is the sound. And for a time lapse, I don't need the sound, right? So all I'll do is I'll grab this video only section and I'll just drag it up to say there. And then I click on it, and on a Mac, on Premiere Pro CC, you press Command R, and then I'll speed it up to maybe, I'll click on there and I'll speed it up to maybe 5 seconds, right? So I'll make that 5 seconds. And one little secret that Ben Brown taught me is you press frame blending rather than frame sampling, and it just makes that time lapse look schmick. So press OK, and you can see it shortens it down. Now this little red section through here means you have to render it, so it just won't play very well unless you render. So what I would then do to render that is just press enter, okay? So to zoom back out of my timeline here, I just press the backspace key, and you can see I've got these little gaps through here. That's because this event here is completely different to that event there. That's where we got our garage flooded yesterday, and this is where I was with Abdullah. So I've left a gap there to sort of put something in the middle there, so that it flows. The story has to flow a little bit. You can see here we've got dialogue down there. So I'll zoom in on this little section here. I'll zoom on this little section. So you see we've got a bit of dialogue through here down the bottom, and a bit of dialogue through there, and then we've got, I'll put music through this section, and then we go back into dialogue through here, and a little bit of a time lapse on the end there, okay? So I'm using the J, K and L keys to move back and forth. The J moves you back, L moves you forward, K stops, okay? So I'll just go back and forward like that, pressing those keys. When I find the start of my dialogue, there I am. So I press K to stop, and I press J to go back, and then L to go forward, and then okay, and then I'll mark an in point by pressing I.
I'm looking for those fluffy things that you use in the shower to wash yourself as well. Can't find them.
Wait, tear story. But anyway, I press an out there. And then what you can do is you can drag it down. As I said before, I can drag it down to that spot there. But the easiest thing is to press the comma key, and it just drops it straight into the timeline. And then we go back to, oh, I don't need any dialogue here, so I'll just move it forward. I'll press an out thing there, and I'll use that as a bit of B-roll. So quite often I will press this thing down here, A1, which toggles the audio, and then I'll press the comma key, and you can see that time it just drops the video in. So I'm just going to go through this. You guys just watch on for a little bit. So next file, 171. So go back, get the best point right there. Press in. Press out. Toggle the audio, because I think I want the audio with that. We'll flick that in. Move on. Press I. Out. And drop that into the timeline. And this is where I was messing around trying to set the camera up in the basket to show you that I'm I'm dropping the thing in the basket. You know, it's like it's cinematic. Okay, so there we go. So we got that. And there you go. So that's in the timeline. So move on. Actually, what I might do is I'll also zoom in on this and I'll capture the walking off bit as well. So that bit there until it falls over to its side. Now what I've done there is I've just hovered the mouse over this this clip, and you can drag this back and forth, and you can see you just pick the best spot and then you let go. So if we go forward now, and same thing in the timeline, you press your J, K and L keys to move back and forth. And that's pretty much it. And then you go on to the next clip. So I'm going to go through these and just drop more interesting stuff into the timeline. These are for Hanny, not for me. I'm trying to be good, and I'm vegan. Hanny's vegetarian, so she still eats chocolate. Okay. And that. So I drag that down with the mouse then into the timeline, but it's always better to use your comma key. Okay, so you position this playhead right on the end. Now what I did then, this is another thing, right? I drop the playhead, I press shift, and it snaps to that point. So it snaps to the end there, okay? So if I go forward, and then the next one is my 173, go forward.
Hannah loves those licorice chocolate things.
So pressing L to go forward.
Hannah loves.
Press K to stop. Press J to go back. Find the point where I start talking. Press I for in. Right, so that marks that in point right there. And you can see this lights up. Move forward with L and stop the dialogue there. Press K to stop. Press O for out. Drag it in the timeline. Now I just had a little bit of dialogue on the end there, so what I could actually do is take it to here and press out there and then drag this down over the top, right? Because it's the same thing, it's just extended.
Loves it. Not for me though.
Alright, so that's that, and then let's go to this next thing. This is just a bit of, you know, I don't know, it's a bit of something. Woman on a bike, whatevs. So will I chuck this on the end? Is it out of context as I've put it on the end there? Or should I do it as I've walked in the store, you know? I don't know. Where's that going to go? Where's this going to go? So we zoom back out. So let's look at how this flows now. That's probably a little bit too long. So shorten that. Now what I've done to shorten that is I've hovered the mouse over that join. Now what you can do is to cut, like that's too long, right? For example, this bit here. So what I can do is I can press the Q or the W key, right? Now the W key cuts this little bit off the end of this clip. It'll cut that little bit there off, right? So let's zoom in on that. So say I don't want anything from here to there. Okay, so what I do is I press the W key and it cuts the end off that. Okay, the same goes if I don't want, if I'm moving this forward, say for example, I don't want any of this here prior to the playhead, I press the Q key and it cuts it out. So if I press J to go back, so anyway, you sort of get the story. You get the story. It's all these little tricks. And you know what, for anyone who doesn't like video editing, who's watching these vlogs and watches them just for the vlog, I apologise.
I'm looking for those fluffy things that you use in the shower to wash yourself as well. Can't find them.
Tears story. Alright, there's too much of a delay for it falling in the thing. So I'll zoom in on that. It's probably about there is probably better, right? So again, hit the Q button. Everything before the playhead will be deleted up to this join. That's better. And now that's too, like that drags on as well, right? So what I could do there is maybe cut that, right? And then play it along, and then where I start to turn, press Q and it'll cut that off. So Now you can change between you. So I press C to get the cut tool, which is the same as that. I can press V, which takes me back to my normal thing. So all these things have shortcuts. The best thing you can do is use your shortcut keys. And essentially, this is how I do it.
Loves those licorice chocolate things. Loves them. Not for me though.
That is it in a nutshell. Now, eventually what I'll do, right, I'll lay all these things out on the timeline. I'll go to SoundCloud, right? So where I'll get my music from is I'll go to SoundCloud, okay? And I will try to find free music and download it. Quite often that artist has used music from somewhere else that's copyrighted and they've mixed it into their mix. And quite often you get pinged on YouTube for using someone else's music. Now, there's two things that happen. There's one of two things that happen. They either just take the monetization for that video and give it to the people who own the song, or they block the video. And if they block the video, I will literally take the video down, remaster it with different music and re-upload it. That rarely happens, but I do get pinged for copyright quite often. So you got to be careful with music. Music's a tough one, man. Like have people always ask me in the comments, what should I do for music? Just go to SoundCloud, try to find free music, and always reference the artist. I'm not great at that, but I should do it more. And then I will, for all these little bits down here where you see all these little gaps through here, I will put music to fill those bits in. I don't actually master any of the music. I don't use, you know, effects and stuff on the music. I just put the music in and I cut it up. And sometimes I'll put like a fade on the end of the music as it moves into dialogue, but not all the time. All right, so another thing is holding the camera, right? So I'm holding the camera now. I'm sort of walking around the house, I'm vlogging. I can zoom right in, but you want a little bit of the surrounding area to see where I am. You can see I'm in my living room, the kitchen's just there. So, you know, I sort of zoom the camera out a little bit. That's probably a little bit too much, maybe there, about 10. Now, holding the camera steady. You can see, I ride on the bike quite often, so I hold the camera when I'm riding the bike. The key is to hold the camera steady. You can see I'm walking around, you know, I'm moving, but the camera is still pretty steady. Okay? Now, the alternative to that, and you know, sometimes Hannah takes the camera and she'll point it, and I find that she's, you know, when you start doing this and then, you know, it's going to crack you guys. It's going to crack you guys. So it's really, really important to hold the camera as steady as possible. You know, if like I'm standing here with the camera talking to you, but there's opportunities for me to put the camera down. I could just put the camera down on the desk like this. The lighting's still not too bad, so I could sort of set that up and just sit down on one of these chairs and zoom it in. And that's just a much better way to talk, right? So with it sat down like that. And the same goes with outside. You can find a letterbox as you're walking down the road. But quite often when you're vlogging, you're walking around. So, you know, it's not a bad option to walk with the camera, but just make sure you keep the camera as steady as possible. Okay, the final thing I'll add very quickly, autofocus on a camera. When you go buy a camera, the autofocus is critical. For vlogging, because you're moving the camera away from your face and closer and away, autofocus is critical. Casey Neistat, he's a famous vlogger. He uses the Canon 80D because the focus on that camera is the best on the market without a doubt. This is a Lumix GH4. The autofocus is not bad because it has face tracking, particularly with this wide angle lens. It's very, very good. If I was to put another lens on, the autofocus isn't great. So I like this lens. The autofocus, because it's a wide angle lens, the focus stays pretty good. And if you use that deeper aperture, you have less chance of it going out of focus on your face. All right. But for vlogging, you have to have autofocus. Now, in this situation where I'm a set distance away from the camera, we could set it to manual focus, set the manual focus, and we're sweet. But in situations where you're walking around moving the camera, you need autofocus. That is a main thing for a camera. Autofocus, flip screen, good audio. Man, I'm trying to condense like 18 months worth of knowledge into this, but I hope you enjoyed this. All right, guys. It's not the most comprehensive thing in the world, but I really hope you enjoyed that. And give me some feedback below that, you know, I could probably do different things. I don't think I'm going to do any more tutorials, to be honest with you. I think I'm just going to stick to vlogging. But until tomorrow, I'll see you guys then.